seriously, I need to go to bed, but I have like two more ideas I just got to get out of my head, and I'm going to forget about them tomorrow if I don't talk about it. So, Pierre Poilievre today, again, campaign, brought up the idea again of mandatory sentencing for criminals. He specifically is targeting drug users and human traffickers. And there was one other thing, but I don't remember it, and I don't really care because it wasn't something that I wanted to talk about. Here's my problem with mandatory sentencing. And judges, I'll tell you right now, judges fucking hate them. Because judges want to be able to sentence based on the situation. Crime is not black and white. It's never been black and white. I mean, there are so many variables of the reasons of why somebody will get arrested, and it's not black and white. No matter the crime, nothing is 100% black and white. And I know you're probably gonna, well, what about this or what? No, nothing is black and white. There are always variables. And as much as we want to say, oh, well, someone's a murderer, someone's a rapist, somebody's a child, PDF, and, they should be, strung up and blah, blah, blah. But no, you cannot think that way. You cannot think that way because there are so many variables when it comes to crimes. And so focusing on what Pierre, because I'm not even going into that other stuff, focusing on what specifically Pierre probably is talking about with human trafficking and drugs. So we'll start about human trafficking, because you're like, oh, well, how could you be opposed to mandatory sentencing for human trafficking? Because I do sex work. And I know for a fact that a lot of countries consider anybody that is just working in this industry, even consensually, to be sex trafficking victims. Like, because the laws are so biased. They are so biased against consensual sex work. So you end up with a lot of times women that are basically like, that are caught, escorting, whatever, doing that job. And they have a choice. They either have to pretend that they're being trafficked to avoid ending up in jail, or they have to admit that it's consensual. Which the problem with that is that, okay, so when you do that kind of work, you usually have a community of people, right? Because it's not safe, right? So you're going to have that person that drives you. Maybe you're going to have that guy that's going to act like security for you. Maybe you live in a house with a few other women, okay? And the problem is that the criminal system will suddenly decide, well, if you live in a house with a bunch of other women that do it, well, it's a whorehouse, it's a body house, it's against the law. You can't have a bordello, you can't have, oh, you have a driver, well, he's a pimp, isn't he? Isn't he a pimp? You have a security, oh, he must be your pimp. So all of a sudden now you create crimes that are not actually there. And so when you have mandatory sentencing in a world where things are not black and white, clear as day, and the system is set up against that industry, the consensual side. I'm not talking about actual women and children and people that are being human trafficked, okay? I'm talking about the people that do it willingly. When you have a system set up to try and plug them into that definition, to put them, because God forbid anybody, two consenting adults do things together when money's involved. You can't do that. You can't do that. You are basically criminalizing what is consensual. And in Canada, it's like prostitution is technically legal. It's sort of a gray line, because the thing is that, like, you can sell it, you can't buy it, and you cannot support it, which is bonkers. So you can sell it, but if somebody gets caught buying it from you, they go to jail. Which makes like it ridiculous about how it's still underground, it's still forced into the corners, into the darkest places possible, and you don't have any safety, any security, anything to protect the workers out there, because the clients are terrified. They're absolutely terrified of the system, right? And then you can't even have people that are set up to help protect you, because if you are caught making money off of that industry, you're a pimp. It falls under like pimping laws or whatever. So you can't have mandatory sentencing, because there's lots of times that people are going to get in front of a judge and be like, listen, she was my friend. I was just doing, driving her to protect her. That if there's mandatory sentencing, a judge cannot look at that situation and go, oh, okay, well, this is not what it looks like, right? So that's the first problem with Pierre's brilliant freaking idea, is that it's not black and white in that situation. Then you go look at the drug thing. He wants mandatory sentencing for people who have fentanyl. But the thing is that how do you tell between a dealer and a client? How do you know that somebody that's holding a certain amount of fentanyl isn't just an addict, right? So what, we're going to throw every single addict out there in jail because of mandatory sentencing, rather than it be somebody that might be an addict and it's their first offense? Like, that's absolutely bonkers. And the thing is that even if you're dealing with the dealers, right, that's not going to stop the cartels. That's not going to stop the people that are actually at that head of all of this fentanyl being made and sold. All you're doing is taking the little guy off the street, the dealer, the addict, and it does not stop the main problem. So having mandatory sentencing, again, all it's going to end up is with a bunch of people in jail that were just desperate in the first place. They were desperate to make that money, or they were desperate to get their fix, or whatever the case. You're not helping anything. You're putting addicts in jail when they should be going to rehab. You're putting dealers in jail in a country right now where people are struggling financially, and a lot of people are desperate or doing what they can to survive, and you're not dealing with the actual main problem. And again, judges don't like mandatory sentencing for these reasons, because they want to be able to look at a situation and look at all the facts, all the factors, everything, and decide whether or not this person needs to be given a second chance. Maybe they need to go to rehab. Maybe they need to, maybe they just need probation. That's what they don't, what like Poilievre doesn't get. He's making it out like, oh, well, fentanyl's killing everybody, so they're murdering. No, that's not the case. That is not the case. All right. And the thing is that if you don't want people dying from fentanyl overdoses, then you need to start providing proper drug rehabilitation that is easy for people to access and get help. And you need to start providing friggin' safe consumption sites where people can be there to deal with situations when there are overdoses and make sure that the drugs are clean and all that stuff, which are getting removed everywhere. Like Ontario right now, we had a bunch of safe consumption sites and injection sites, and Ford wanted to get rid of them. Oh, because they were too close to schools or parks or whatever. So a judge had to intervene and stop it for now, because the thing is that while they're so mad that they're near schools and parks, you take them away and guess what happens? Then all those drug users move to the schools and the parks. You're not making it better. You're not doing anything. So we need better mental health. We need to start looking at the poverty situations and figuring out how we are going to solve this, which includes looking at like homelessness and drug job insecurity and getting people back to work, and that sort of thing. Looking at taking care of our most vulnerable, because most of the time you have drug users or you have dealers because they're in bad situations. And if you don't deal with the bad situations, if you don't look at the factors that lead to that drug use, lead to those drug sales, you're not going to stop. It's been proven multiple times over and over and over again that punishments, jail sentencing and stuff like that does not deter anybody. Crime still happens. You could have, literally in the United States, they have the death penalty, and people still commit crimes. They still murder people and end up on death row. So sentencing does not change the facts. So Pierre, he's just playing to the cameras, and it's not going to solve any of the fucking problems, because he is not focusing on the actual issues. He just wants to appear big and strong, because he thought at the beginning of all of this that Trump and all the fentanyl, border stuff was real, and if he appeared big and bad on it and that he was going to do something about it, people would vote for him. Well, we all know the fentanyl crisis, the border stuff is bullshit. It's absolute bullshit.